The monster study. Imagine being a child and slowly being convinced that the way you speak is broken. That is exactly what happened in one of psychology's darkest experiments. In 1939, researchers gathered orphaned children and divided them into groups. One group received praise for speaking well. The other was constantly criticized, told they stuttered, and made to feel embarrassed every time they spoke. But here's the problem. Many of those children never had speech problems to begin with. Researchers wanted to see if negative words alone could create stuttering. And for some kids, the damage stuck for years. Confidence collapsed. Anxiety exploded. Children who once spoke normally became nervous and withdrawn. The real danger is how easily the human brain absorbs labels. Tell someone they are broken long enough, and sometimes they begin acting like it. What makes this worse is that these were vulnerable orphans with nobody protecting them. The Stanford Prison Experiment. It started as a normal college experiment, and somehow turned into psychological chaos in less than a week. In 1971, volunteers were split into fake prisoners and fake guards inside a mock prison basement. The goal seemed harmless. Researchers wanted to study authority and power, but this is where it gets worse. The guards became aggressive almost immediately. Prisoners were humiliated, sleep-deprived, and psychologically crushed. Some broke down emotionally after only days. The strangest part is that nobody forced the guards to become cruel. Many simply slipped into the role naturally. Researchers themselves became so involved they failed to stop the abuse. What should have lasted 2 weeks was shut down after 6 days because things spiraled too far. The terrifying question it raised still lingers today. Under the right conditions, how quickly can ordinary people become monsters? The Milgram obedience experiment. Imagine sitting in a room while someone screams in pain because of something you're doing. Then imagine continuing anyway because somebody in a lab coat calmly tells you to. That was the terrifying setup behind one of psychology's most disturbing studies. Participants believed they were helping with a memory test. Whenever someone answered incorrectly, they were instructed to give electric shocks. The catch was that the victim was secretly an actor and no real shocks happened. But participants did not know that. As screams grew louder and desperate pleas filled the room, many people hesitated. But here's where things turned dark. Around 2/3 of participants kept increasing the voltage all the way to levels labeled dangerous or even deadly. The real horror was not electricity. It was obedience. The experiment suggested ordinary people might ignore their morals simply because authority tells them to keep going. Little Albert experiment. Fear feels natural, but what if fear could be manufactured like software being installed into a brain? In 1920, researchers tested this on a baby known only as Albert. At first, he showed no fear of rats, rabbits, or furry objects. Then researchers introduced something terrifying. Every time Albert touched a white rat, they blasted a loud metal noise behind him. Soon the child panicked at the sight of the animal alone. But here's the disturbing part. The fear spread. Albert became afraid of fluffy dogs, fur coats, and even Santa Claus masks. His brain had learned to associate harmless things with terror. This experiment helped scientists understand conditioning, but the real danger is what it revealed about us. Human fears can sometimes be programmed. A single traumatic event can silently reshape how someone reacts to the world forever. The Robbers Cave experiment. It began like an ordinary summer camp with boys playing games and making friends. But secretly, researchers had another plan. They divided kids into separate groups and encouraged rivalry between them. At first, everything seemed harmless. Tug-of-war competitions, sports, team names. But this is where it gets ugly. Researchers slowly pushed the groups into conflict. Soon insults turned into stealing, vandalism, and outright hatred. Flags were burned. Fights broke out. Boys who had never met suddenly saw each other as enemies. The scary part is how little it took to create division. But here's what made the experiment unforgettable. Researchers later forced the groups to solve problems together, like fixing broken water supplies. Slowly, the hatred faded. The experiment exposed something uncomfortable about human nature. Groups can become hostile frighteningly fast, but cooperation can sometimes rebuild what conflict destroys. Project MKUltra. What if someone secretly experimented on your mind without your permission? During the Cold War, intelligence agencies became obsessed with controlling human behavior. This led to one of the darkest psychological programs ever attempted. Under MKUltra, researchers explored whether drugs, hypnosis, sleep deprivation, and psychological torture could manipulate people. Some participants had no idea they were even being tested. In certain cases, people were secretly given powerful hallucinogens like LSD and monitored without consent. But here's where things become unsettling. The project pushed into territory that sounded more like science fiction than reality. Could memories be altered? Could minds be broken and rebuilt? The answers remain partly hidden because many documents were destroyed. The real danger is knowing how far people will go when fear and secrecy collide. Sometimes the darkest experiments happen behind locked doors where nobody is watching. Learned helplessness experiment. Imagine trying to escape pain over and over again only to realize nothing works. Eventually, you stop trying completely. Researchers discovered this through experiments involving dogs exposed to unavoidable electric shocks. At first, the animals desperately searched for escape, but after repeated failure, something disturbing happened. Even when escape later became possible, many dogs simply stayed still and accepted the pain. They had mentally surrendered. But here's why this experiment became so important and unsettling. Researchers realized humans can experience something similar. Constant failure, abuse, or stress can trap people in invisible psychological cages. Someone may have opportunities to leave a bad situation, but feel incapable of trying. The real danger is how silently this mindset forms. Sometimes people are not physically trapped. They are psychologically convinced escape is impossible. The third wave experiment. If someone told you democracy could disappear inside a classroom in only days, it would sound ridiculous. Yet one teacher accidentally proved how fragile human behavior can be. In 1967, a history teacher wanted students to understand how authoritarian movements rise. He created a strict classroom movement based on discipline, loyalty, and obedience. Students embraced it instantly. Secret hand signals appeared. Rules became intense. Members reported on classmates who questioned the group. But this is where things became genuinely frightening. Within days, students became emotionally invested and fiercely loyal. Some even bullied outsiders. The teacher eventually revealed it had all been fake, exposing how easily people can surrender independence for belonging and structure. The real horror is realizing manipulation does not always arrive through force. Sometimes it feels exciting, comforting, and strangely normal until it is too late.